welcome to the new video on the topic of origin of philosophy. So what is philosophy? Philosophy means just love of wisdom. So let's start with the etymology or the origin of the word philosophy in itself. Philosophy is a word which comes out from two Greek words, philo and sophia. Philo means love and sophia means wisdom. So here, philo and sophia together comes philosophy, and that means love of wisdom. So philosophy is a study of life, knowledge, truth, values and existence and so on, which is all part of wisdom. So what is wisdom ultimately? Wisdom is the knowledge about everything or awareness about everything. So here philosophy means just love of that wisdom. So all those who seek wisdom is a philosopher. So let me repeat again. Philosophy, the word philosophy comes from two Greek words, philo and sophia. Philo means love and sophia means wisdom. Here, philo and sophia together makes the term philosophy, which means love of wisdom. And now, where did philosophy begin? Philosophy began in ancient Greece around 6th century BCE. Philosophy began in ancient Greece around 6th century BC. It started when people stopped depending only on religion or myths to explain the world. We know that in the primitive times, people were astonished about the wonders of nature, like sun, like wind, like rain, like storms and all. They were wondered and astonished. They don't know how it comes, how it originates, and what is the purpose of all of these forces. And they believed everything is from God, and they made religion to explain their curiosity, to make their curiosity fill with answers. Now, philosophy began in ancient Greece around 6th century BC when people stopped depending on religion and myths to explain the world and the phenomenon going on world. So they began to ask questions and started to use a reason to find answers. They started to make use of their faculty of reasoning and logic to find answers to their questions and for their doubts. They tried to find answers to their astonishments using their reason and logic. And why did philosophy start? Why? Philosophy started, we could say, just because of four things maybe. First of all, wonder. People were curious about life, nature and the universe in itself. They wondered about life. What is life? Where does it come from? And what is nature and universe? So they started wondering on all things around them. And secondly, change in thinking. Instead of myths, as I told earlier, instead of myths and religion, they used observation and thinking. That was one of the finest steps ahead to find answers. They started to observe things and think with that observations. And that change in thinking, made a beginning to philosophy. And also the freedom to think. The Greek society allowed people to discuss, to make debates on many points and many topics. And as a result, they were able to explain what is or what was within themselves. They all are with great ideas and concepts, but they don't get enough space to explain, to share their thoughts. When they get freedom to think and share their thoughts, they gathered together, discussed many topics, made debates, and tried to find answers to their questions. Then the fourth one, contact with other cultures. We know that in the primitive times, people lived in short communities, ahead and apart from one another. Trade made themselves to come together, and as a result, they found that their culture is entirely different from the others. So they understood that there are many other cultures, there are many other cultures other than their own, and that made them to get more explored and think differently apart from their own thinking. And now we have almost covered what is philosophy. Philosophy is love of wisdom, and it comes from two Greek words, philos and sophia. And philosophy ultimately means love of wisdom, and philosophy, to give our definition, it's not able to give a proper definition to philosophy as it covers everything under sun. No, everything not under sun, everything in the universe. So we can't control or we can't congest this vast topic into a simple definition. So we could say philosophy is the study of life, knowledge, truth, values, and existence, and so on. Let's conclude a definition like that, but it's not the ultimate definition for philosophy. We can explain or we can say about philosophy, but we can't give a proper definition for philosophy. So, and the next question, where did philosophy started in ancient Greece around 6th century BCE. When it started, when people stopped depending on religion and myths to explain the world, and they began to ask questions and use reason and logic to find answers, right? Okay, why did philosophy start? As we told, there were four reasons to start philosophy. First of all, wonder, change in thinking, freedom to think, and contact with other cultures. Hope the topic so far is clear. And now we are coming to the early philosophers, pre-Socratic philosophers. So guys, the philosophical period is basically divided into three, which are pre-Socratic philosophers, Socratic philosophers, and post-Socratic philosophers. Now, in the category of pre-Socratic philosophers or the early philosophers, there comes the first philosopher, Thales of Miletus. Thales of Miletus is known as the first philosopher. The first philosopher is Thales of Miletus. And who is the father of philosophy? That is not Thales. Unfortunately, the father of philosophy is Socrates. So, what made Socrates the father of philosophy? That is because the contributions given by Socrates is much valuable than that of Thales. Thales ignited the thought of thinking process. That's why Thales is known to be the first philosopher. And all the early philosophers, or pre-Socratic philosophers, was behind the question, what is the basic element of everything in the universe? What is the basic stuff of everything, including life, in the universe? And Thales thought a lot on it and find an answer that water is the basic element of life. Thales found that water is the basic element of life. And secondly, the follower of Thales, Anaximander, comes. Anaximander said that it is not a material thing which can be the basic element of everything. It should be something which we can't perceive it through our senses. So he called it something which is unnatural, and he called it apeiron. Apeiron. As we could see, the spelling of apeiron is Apeiron, apeiron. And after Anaximander, his follower Heraclitus comes. Heraclitus said, everything changes, and fire is the basic element of life. Fire is the basic element of life. Fire does not mean the fire which burns alone, but including every category of fire, including temperature, is also a part of the fire, what he meant. And when he speaks about Heraclitus, we should refer to his famous quotes. He said that everything changes. Nothing is static or permanent. Everything changes. And he said that we can't step twice in the flowing water. No one can step twice in a flowing water. And again, after Heraclitus comes the famous philosopher Pythagoras, which all of us knew from our early schools onwards. Pythagoras believed that numbers are the basic element of everything, including life in the universe. Numbers are the basic element of everything. We know that Pythagoras is very famous for the contribution he given to the field of mathematics is very significant, and he strongly believed that everything, the basic stuff of life is numbers. Now, the category of pre-Socratic philosophers ends with Socrates, Anaximander, Heraclitus, and Pythagoras. This is not the four in ultimate, but there are many other thinkers, philosophers who influenced philosophy a lot. But for the time being, we are considering only these four who gave the best contributions to the field of philosophy. Now it's come to the great classical philosophers. The great classical philosophers are three in number. All the three are very famous, and we know them in very detail from our school days onwards. The first one among the great classical philosophers is Socrates. Socrates, as we know, he is the father of philosophy. Socrates is known to be the father of philosophy. He was behind truth. He wanted to find truth. In order to find truth, he asked questions. And to find truth, he developed a system of his own, that is what known as the Socratic method or midwifery method. The method is that every man is pregnant with ideas. Socrates said every man is pregnant with ideas. So what we want to do? What we want to do is just help them to deliver the ideas within themselves. So he made arguments, he made debates with one another, and tried to make the points and ideas within themselves out. So that is the system which Socrates followed to bring people into the process of thinking. That method is known as Socratic method or midwifery method. We'll come in detail to all these topics. So let's give a brief. I'm trying to give just a brief idea about all this, okay, for the time being. Now, the second philosopher, Plato. Plato, as we all know, we all heard a lot about Plato. Plato was a student or the follower of Plato. Plato was a follower of Socrates, and he wrote a lot extensively about philosophical subjects. Republic was a great contribution from Plato, and there are many other fields which Plato covers, including justice, society, ideal society, government, politics. In every field, Plato gave a great contribution. We will come later to Plato. Okay. Now the third one, Aristotle. As same as Socrates and Plato, Aristotle also had great contribution into the field of wisdom and philosophy. He was a student of Plato, and basically he focused on science, logic, and ethics. He gave a vast contribution to the field of wisdom, and later we will take classes on all these philosophers in particular. So I'm trying to give just a brief of the origin of the philosophy. And now comes to the main goal of early philosophers. What are the main goals of philosophy? The goal of philosophy is to understand the world through thinking and reasoning, and not by myths. To understand the world through thinking and reasoning, not by myth. That was the purpose and the goal of philosophy, to make people think and use their faculty of reasoning, and to ask the questions like, what is reality? We don't know what is reality. We don't know to explain what is real, what is reality, and what is right and wrong. My right may not be the right of others. My wrong may not be wrong to others. It all depends on person to person. So what is ultimately the right? What is ultimately the wrong? So all these are questions why we wanted to find answers. And what is the purpose of life ultimately? What is the purpose of life? Life, we don't know what is it. Where does it comes from? And for what it is? We don't have any ideas about all this. And philosophy tries to find answers to all these kind of questions. And hereby, to conclude, philosophy began as a search for wisdom in ancient Greece. Philosophy began as a search for wisdom in ancient Greece. It started when people began to question the world around them and use reason to find answers. See, the people began to question the world. That is the main content in it. They began to question the world around them and use reason to find answers. They don't try to depend again on their myths and beliefs, but they use their reason to find answers to their questions. This new way of thinking really laid the foundation for science, politics, ethics, and all the subjects we are learning nowadays. So guys, here I'm winding up the first session on the origin of philosophy. In the coming days, we will update you with the detailed video on the particular philosophers, different particular philosophers, and hope we will meet you soon. Thank you.